Hello.
I'm Jody. Hi, Jody. I'm Stephanie. Nice to meet you. That's Heidi.
Hi. Happy New Year.
Oh, windy out
Oh
there.
my God, I know.
Happy New Year, yes.
I don't know if we're unmuted. You know, the whole rule.
We have to, not,
I don't know why I'm acting like I know at this point.
What happened? What's going on? Because you guys are all ready to rock and roll.
I was just saying, I don't know if we have to be unmuted now.
Yeah, you are muted.
Yeah. So we unmute from the, I do.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
We'll just make sure. Thanks. Guys, this is unmuted already. This is live. You want me to mute it or is that?
No, it's fine. Well, thankfully I wasn't talking to myself.
It's unmuted now.
Yeah. Okay.
So Jim
Thank you.
actually wants to send apologies, he won't be able to make it today.
Oh, okay.
He had a friend pass, so
Oh.
there's his good.
Okay,
Yeah, but he sends his apologies.
all right, I'll excuse him.
Happy New Year, Steve.
Happy New Year to you and to everyone else.
Thank you. Hey, happy New Year.
No, it's open.
Something caught me on a night that I'm hungry.
Sorry. You have your slides?
I do,
Okay.
In a USB, what is?
I can put it in you.
I would rather do it, because there's only two options, either
Okay.
as sharing the screen as you're being in the Zoom call, or you opening it in the laptop or the USB.
Okay, sorry,
This side is for the committee members.
got it, apologies. Okay.
Sorry. I didn't know how Steve wanted to roll, so I
All right.
didn't
No,
get off the table.
I just took the chair that.
No worries.
Right. Okay, my thing found, thank you.
Hi, how are
Hi.
you?
Fine.
This side.
See the signage sheet.
Okay.
Yeah, well, since you're not gonna be in the Zoom call, so you're physically here, you can just put it in there.
Really?
I didn't really have any shit there. Only on the 25th and the 1st.
Yeah, wanna put.
But everything
I'll
else.
say this appeals a whole lot.
That's not. The 25th and the first is not really,
No, but
but maybe.
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna take, there's quite a bit of vacation this year, so.
That's easy.
But yeah, so I was like, you know, I'll suck it up, but like.
Because once you throw it on the screen.
Yeah.
You USB card, that's all.
Kate, my daughter, sort of the same thing. She did take some time off though, but, she is now working. remotely now.
About it all.
You guys are reading cards, you can enjoy it, it's the first, second day of the year, you'll be fine. They're counting calories, they're looking at the snacks and reading the back. I don't do that, I just eat it.
Now it's even more extreme.
Yeah, I don't have too many more
Not just
years of that.
calories, but.
I know, I don't have too many more years of doing that, but then, you know, there comes an age where the weight doesn't drop off as quickly as you pick it up.
Uh-huh.
That's for sure. That's,
And I think I'm turning the wheel there.
Oh, gosh,
Is this now recorded?
yeah.
Yeah, you're all set. Give you, well, I'll wait until I have help her and then I'll give you the whole thing instead of. Sure. Your file.
We're gonna wait a few more minutes, to see if any more of our committee members show up. I see that both of our guest speakers have already signed on. Well, one of them is signed on, one of them is present in person. Good. Jacob and Carmen is supposed to be remote. But I don't see I don't see that they've signed it yet. Oh, Carmen has raised her hand. Why has she raised her hand?
Is she a panelist? Maybe you need to promote her or whatever.
They will be ready. When you're ready, it's ready. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You're welcome. Just minimize Zoom and you're right behind it.
Thanks so much.
Okay, let me give you the hosting ability so you can check whatever you have on the side there.
Right.
Hi, I can speak now, but I think I have to be still made a panelist.
I think no,
This is fine. I can speak, so that's all that matters.
yeah, so I think you're now considered a panelist. Well, maybe not. Damn it. I just promoted you to panelist.
Yep, I'm good now. Thank you, Steve.
And now you're a full-fledged, um. Mike, if you can hear me, the message that you, put in the Q&A got cut off. So we don't have any of the details. If you could finish that message, give us the details, we can, pass the complaint on to, our Department of Health representative. Right, we now have a quorum. I think we're gonna start. Is Jacob with us? Yeah, thank God. All right, Jacob, Jacob is also with us, so, and Jacob, even though he's sick and has a cough, is still dedicated enough to take the minutes. Carmen is with us.
Thank you, Jacob.
All right, so we have, this is very good. We have seven of the 8 committee members. We're calling this meeting to order at 7:06 PM. And our first speaker is Jordan Rosenthal, the Director of Advocacy for a group called Community Access. And she's speaking to us tonight about a citywide issue that she first spoke to the Committee on Housing and Human Services last month, and is now making the rounds at Community Board 12 and discussing this question with us tonight about how mental health incidents are handled by the police department, I believe, in emergency 911 situations. Jordan, if I didn't properly introduce the subject, please correct me, and let's proceed to your presentation.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. And it was pretty accurate. I would say you got about like 85% of it right.
Okay, that's a passing grade.
Yes, I would say
would-
the most confusing part is, and I'll explain that right now. So hi, everyone. My name is Jordan Rosenthal. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Director of Advocacy at Community Access, which is a nonprofit that builds supportive housing and offers a litany of services for people with mental health concerns. We also are members of a coalition called Correct Crisis Intervention Today, CCIT. And I am the lead organizer of CCIT, and I'm here in that capacity. So that's the one little caveat of which I know is a little confusing. But anyway, so CCIT, let's see if I can share my screen so I can share my presentation.
Oh, very good.
Okay, here we go. So CCIT is a coalition of community-based organizations, individuals, family members of people who have mental health concerns, who are coming together to basically say, like, police aren't the appropriate people to be responding to a majority of mental health calls. This does not mean that police can never respond to a mental health crisis call, but that the traditional or the automatic approach isn't necessarily utilizing that feature. So again, as said, so we're working on really about addressing how those mental health crisis calls are currently handled. And what we're advocating for is a response that is led by peers, and peers are basically people with their own mental health experience. There are lots of different types of peers. If y'all have ever had a presentation from On Point, they use peers as well, but those are specifically people who have used substances or continue to use substances, and we're talking about people who specifically have had a mental health crisis. So what is our proposal? What are we asking for? Well, basically, we want to see mental health crisis response teams that embody best practice, which is really a two-person team, which would be a peer trained as a crisis counselor and an EMT who's not affiliated with the FDNY or NYPD. And we would want to see these teams operating 24/7, 365 days a year, and they would have coordinated response systems with alternatives to hospitalization and other places of care. So for instance, there's crisis respite centers. Community Access runs one of them. It's down in Gramercy. It has about 10 beds. There are things called crisis stabilization centers. The first one just opened out in Cypress Hills, Queens, and that's basically a place where people could go for up to 24 hours to kind of like figure out, you know, like, what are my next steps? How am I going to get connected to care, a mental health provider, etc. And it's all to kind of like calm a crisis down and bring the situation, the temperature down, and de-escalation, because very often people aren't connected to care, and that's the hardest part. So why do we want this? Well, basically, healthcare responses to mental health crises are considered a best practice. There is already something called Be Heard, which I'm going to talk about, but many of the Be Heard like responses, even in qualifying areas, which includes your own district. Be Heard is very seldom used, and that has to do with funding and some other things. And then last but not least, or not last but not least, but to also know that people with untreated mental health concerns are 16 times more likely to have a police encounter. And since 2015, 20 New Yorkers who are predominantly men of color have been killed by police during a mental health crisis. So what we're talking about is not only loss of life, but the domino impact of trauma on the community. So a better system is possible, and it does exist in other parts of the country, including Eugene, Oregon, Denver, Colorado, and even New Haven. And in New York, in New York City, we have something called Be Heard, which stands for the Behavioral Health Emergency Assistance Response Division. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But all of these programs are attempts, or really cities' desires to kind of shift how we respond to these types of calls, to not only respond to more, but have a more cost-effective kind of mechanism that's also less coercive and safer for more people. So what currently exists? Well, we have Be Heard, which is supposed to be a non-police mental health crisis response system, and that uses a team of EMTs, or a paramedic, and a licensed social worker. And these are all the licensed social workers trained through Health and Hospitals, and the EMT and paramedic is coming through FDNY. These teams operate 7 days a week, 16 hours a day in 4 out of the 5 boroughs, and does not include the entire borough, but instead rather select police precincts. And I'm going to show you a map later. There are swaths of the city where there's no coverage, which means that automatically people by default would be given a police response. Again, your district is completely covered and was one of the first districts to actually get Be Heard. So even if y'all aren't familiar with it, that's kind of my point, is like, it's been around for a while, or several years at this point, and Harlem and Upper Manhattan and the South Bronx were really like the starting point, but it isn't used in a way to really impact or make a difference on the community. So then the other thing that's kind of ironic is, so the use of the language attempt of a city at a non-police response, part of that comes from the city directly. And it's ironic because if you look, it's actually a collaborative effort, and FDNY and NYPD are some of the forces behind Be Heard. So it still has NYPD very much baked into the program, which other advocates find really problematic, whereas I'm kind of more of, we can work with this, and it's more about shifting the majority of the calls away from the police department to these peer-led teams. So as you can see here, here's some data. Every 3 minutes, a New Yorker calls 911 for a mental health assistance. And in all the way, this like map that you see is where we have Be Heard coverage. So there are huge swaths of the city where there is no coverage. And then also the program data piece. And this is what's really disturbing or disheartening, more so. You can see that of the total mental health calls, less than half were eligible for a Be Heard response. Of that, only 3/4 could get a Be Heard response. And of that, less than half, actually a Be Heard team made contact with the patient. And then half of that received a mental health assessment. So there is a huge issue of actually connecting to people in care during crisis. One of our big coalition wins was having an oversight hearing, and this was a big deal because it actually required 4 different committees. And these were some of our highlights that we learned about at the hearing. One was that Be Heard operates in 31 out of 77 precincts with 9 teams during the day and 9 at night or in the afternoon. But one of the things that Eva Wong talked about, and I don't know if they've switched it yet, is switching from police precincts to more flexible geographic boundaries. So that way, for instance, I would say March of last year, there was a young man in Councilmember Schulman's district in Queens who was having a mental health crisis. And because his area was not in a Be Heard district, he was met with police. And unfortunately, this young man lost his life in front of his mother during a mental health crisis. And this is the type of severity that we're talking about. And what had happened in that situation was he was aggravated by the police presence and wasn't considered violent beforehand. And because the police presence really escalated the situation, he picked up a pair of scissors, which then really created a difficult situation. So, sorry, but anyway, going on. Of the trainings that we learned about 911 and 988 dispatchers, they only get 1 full day of training on mental health. Only 1 full day training. And part of what our plan is talking about is changing the dispatch system of who actually decides what type of response is sent out. And then last but not least, we also found out that they use a triage algorithm, which assesses if there's violence, weapons, or suicidal behavior. And the suicidal behavior one is the one that should really call out to you, because this is supposed to be a mental health crisis response system. But if you are automatically saying if there's suicidal behavior, you are going to direct that to police instead of possibly this alternative, you're setting yourself up for failure. So here's an overview of kind of our model versus what's going on in the Be Heard model. We really want a pretty large non-police, non-coercive response for as many mental health crisis calls as possible. In the city and right now, less than 20% of these calls get kind of a Be Heard response. We want something that's 24/7. Right now, it's 16 hours. We want peers on these teams. Right now, there's no peers. We want community oversight and engagement. There really isn't any community input or anything like that right now. Transparency and in-depth evaluation. For a while, the city was not producing any public data on this, and every time that they did produce public data, they would take down their old public data, and we collected it and posted it to our website, and then they magically posted it to their website. So there's, history of issues of data transparency. We would like to see partnership. Again, it's really just kind of working within their own bubble right now. And then we really want to see quality connections to care and follow-up care. And even though these teams are supposed to be connecting people to heat teams and things like that, there really is a crisis of also workforce issues of having enough people to do this work. So what we really want is to have the Be Heard program adopt these best practices of the CCIT model to amend the program to be more efficient and more effective. So the ways that you all could get involved, and I could talk a little bit also about what we said with housing, the housing committee, is schedule a meeting with your city council member to talk about the need for peers, not police, which is our hashtag or our slogan. We would love to have community board 12 formally sign on, or even your subcommittee. We can do another presentation for whomever you'd like. And I won't, just because I know time is precious, but there is a video that you could watch from New York One that was from the day of the oversight hearing that really puts into perspective how important this issue is. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm open for questions.
Okay, great, thank you. and I think we all agree this is a very important issue. But let me just start off the questions. Could we, well, first of all, why is it that you wanted EMT on the response team, but not one from FDNY? What did, do you have a problem with the ones who will currently respond from EMS?
So there actually is a lawsuit that CCIT is a part of. It's called Baerga versus the City of New York. And in this lawsuit, we found that the EMTs actually sometimes were the ones that really handled situations the most inappropriately for the person in crisis. And we feel that, you know, if there needs to be an EMT, we don't really want that culture that kind of really exists with NYPD and other kind of institutions of the city to infiltrate that. And I just want to give this a caveat of like, I'm not like, and I don't think anyone was saying this by any means, we're not like anti-police. We just think that there's a different way for people to be responding to these types of calls. And that like, you know, there's just other options, and there are people who are better suited to de-escalate kind of mental health situations.
Just surprised to hear that there's an issue with the EMTs with EMS. So are there enough other EMTs out there that could be recruited to do this work?
So we think that it could be open to an RFP. There's lots of different things. And one of the other things is that we're open to an incrementalist approach. We're not saying that all of these changes have to happen overnight for Be Heard, right? Like we understand that it's also a pilot and kind of striking when the iron's hot. There is a group called Communities United for Police Reform who thinks kind of like the whole program should be, you know, starting from the ground up. Whereas I'm kind of, and my coalition is more so of we can amend what currently exists to, you know, change it to be what we need it to be. And I would just say that like, I think the biggest thing for us is really getting the peers on the teams. And the difference with the peer, and this really goes to a lot of the mental health stuff, all that also deals with transportation and for people who are unhoused, has to do with, you know, building a quality relationship. And service declination really comes from lots of different reasons, but one of it has to do with distrust and being burned by the system so frequently, and having someone who's a peer who could say, I know what it's like to be unsheltered. I know what it's like to hear voices. I know what it's like to be in crisis, is a different type of response that's going to allow for trust and genuine, authentic connection that's going to lead to better results and someone more likely to be willing to receive and accept care versus a coercive mechanism of, okay, we're going to go to the hospital now, you know, like that's, and I think one of the things that I was going to say, and I'll kind of wrap it up really quickly, is Hatzalah, which is a Chabad Jewish organization, which I think maybe they run up by you guys too, by the yeshiva. You know, that's not to say it's the end all be all, but it's a culturally competent EMS service. And that's part of what we're talking about, is how do you get a culturally competent response to mental health care?
So you would prefer the peers to the licensed social workers that are currently on the Be Heard teams?
Yes, correct. And the other issue, just so people are aware, and this is a workforce development issue, is that there is a big difficulty for hiring social workers to fill those roles. So part of when we're talking about that there's 9 teams and, you know, there's not enough is like, well, maybe the bar is too high for who we're trying to achieve for this. But also when we're thinking about workforce development, This is also a way to empower a group of people who traditionally haven't had access to maybe jobs that have benefits, that have pensions, that have, roles like that. So when we're thinking about this, this is also an economic issue.
Yeah. So you would see the city issuing an RFP to authorize some organization to run this program and to train the peers?
Yeah, so we think that like it could be an RFP to have, different organizations for different parts of the city. So that way, again, it's culturally competent. But what I would say is that a lot of these details are not necessarily ironed out because, and this is my caveat, CCIT has been around for about a decade. We have pivoted with our approach and what we've thought by learning through best practice. And part of the reason our name is actually CCIT is because we originally advocated for CIT training, which is that police officer training of, you take someone who has lived experience and you kind of sit them in the room with the police officers or correction officers and they listen. But it's been proven to not really be effective. So we've really learned with the curve. And part of our proposal, or not part, but our whole proposal really, was developed through the Cahoots model, which is out of Eugene, Oregon. And then we were really pushing for it. And then in the dark of night, under the de Blasio administration, they announced Be Heard, and they didn't really consult any advocacy or community groups that were offering services. They were just kind of like, oh, we announced this pilot and we're doing it. So a lot of what my job has been in my role is like, okay, well, how can I balance these two things? We have this proposal of best practices and ideal ways to respond to crises. And then the city has already developed this infrastructure. And how can we take those to create one that really serves as many people as possible? So while maybe not all of these details are completely ironed out, I think I just want to be clear on kind of what we're grappling with.
Right, I think that's understood. Could we just go back to that slide that shows the total number of mental health cases reported to 911, the numbers that were responded to, yes.
There you go.
Okay, so I don't quite understand. So there were 51,329 calls. How is it that only 20,451 are eligible? Oh, because those are the calls within the Be Heard zone.
Yes, but it's also, was there a threat of violence? Was there a threat of suicide? Was there, was a Be Heard team even so you want to see if it's eligible, right? So that's going to the
so these are the ones outside of the violence and suicide categories.
Yes. And then once you get into that, the Be Heard responded is even lower because you may not have a team for everyone who's eligible for a response.
There might not have been a team available at that particular time.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
And if they did respond in only half of those cases, would they have made contact with the patient? Why would that number be so low?
It could do with response times. So the other thing that is really important to understand about this, and it's interesting because you guys are north, so I don't know what your opinion on congestion pricing is, but this is supposed to be an emergency service, and as quickly as a fire department or NYPD would respond is how quickly this is supposed to respond. Yeah. Now, when you look at response times, though, which is a different chart that we have, it teeters at one point over 20 minutes. So it could be that in that 20 minutes, that person knows that someone's coming and they're like, I don't want to, engage with that. And they leave the scene. It could be a lot of different things. But that response time does definitely give.
So by the time they get there, maybe the patient is no longer around, or has.
It could be. I mean, part of this also is, and what I said before too, is we've had very difficult time talking to people who even had a Be Heard response because it's so limited in scope of who's actually been able to get one. And this has been going on since, like, I want to say before the pandemic that Be Heard was launched.
Does it go that far back? Maybe, I don't know.
I think it was 2019.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right, well, that's, okay, well, you've clarified these numbers for me. OC, did you have a question?
Yes, so,
I'm sorry, I didn't, one second, I didn't introduce the, members of my committee. Which, that's a major failing on my part. So this is, OC Kamino, who's my assistant chair, and we're also joined, here in the room by Heidi Guzman, Jody Herson, and Richard Ullman, and remotely by Carmen Paulino and Jacob Banis. So 7 of our 8 members are present. OC, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so, I'm assuming that right now, the way this system work, the police, the NYPD is the lead agency that actually handle those cases, even though they have social worker in the team. Let's say in those cases that the social worker is coming to the location. I'm assuming that the NYPD is the lead agency that handle most of what's going on.
so traditionally, yes. But if Be Heard responds, the police do not respond unless Be Heard requests that they come.
Okay, so so a social worker is going to the location,
Yeah,
and unless they need a support by NYPD, they are the only one that going there.
they're
to-
with the EMT.
They would be, EMT.
Yeah, so it's a team of 2 people. It's the EMT and the social worker. And what we're saying is that the social worker, you should lower the bar, basically. So instead of the person needing to be a social worker, that it could be a peer. And that you're also going to have more luck in terms of better response and outcomes by having a peer be in that role versus a social worker. And I'll give you an example. So I technically am a social worker. I have an MSW. I used to work for an organization called the Women's Community Justice Association. And I wasn't doing therapy, but I was working with women on Rikers who were had, cases, and we were trying to get them, be able to fight their cases from the community. And I had very difficulty kind of talking to these women, even though I'd worked in this field for quite some time, because, I'm not one of them. And that makes sense, right? And I think it goes back to like the whole peer and like social worker, like, kind of dichotomy of how can we connect to people and who's going to understand. And I'll just give you a really quick little story of when I first started my career. I met a woman through the Women's Prison Association who was living unsheltered, and she had access to a shower, but she didn't use the shower. And the reason why she didn't use the shower was because she thought the smellier I am, the less likely I'll be assaulted at night. And when I heard that, I felt like I walked into a brick wall because it was so obvious. But so often in our lives and in the city, because we're so desensitized, we could see someone and just kind of be like, oh, whatever, right? And I think this really speaks to the peer, because only if someone who has been in that experience knows or would have that understanding and wouldn't need that person to tell them, I'm doing this for self-protection and I know how to protect myself best, unless they had been in that situation and they'd been able to understand or know like, oh, that's a defense mechanism. And that I really think about as a great example of like the power of the peer and that lived experience.
All right.
I have a couple questions. Let me start with one and see what time permits. What are the outcomes, Mr. Commuter? If we were to go into advocacy mode, is that to help get this issue further into the public dialogue? Is that moving towards possible legislation? Is that involvement in the municipal budget process? Is there a state link on this? What are some of the
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So it's kind of like all of the above. So the way that I think about it is CCIT is like an umbrella. We have lots of different coverage zones, and there are lots of different tactics we can get to our dream goal of having a non-police response. One of those ways is through this Be Heard advocacy, which is again specifically influencing city budget. Someone even talked to us at the other CB12 subcommittee meeting about getting something in I forgot, I'm blanking on the terms. I think it was like terms and agreements or something on the budget. But really what we're trying to do is to get peers on the team 24/7 citywide. And I realized I did not cover this at all in my presentation, but if we would ideally love the dispatch of this program to go through 988 as opposed to 911. So that would 988 is the mental health line. It's the 3-digit code now. And we would want interoperability through 311, 911, and 988. So people could send it, to the different systems. And part of why this is so important has to do with what we were talking about earlier of that 911 operators get very limited training in mental health, and they might not be making the best decisions of what is considered even an eligible call. I see Jacob's hand, and then I'll.
Go ahead, Jacob.
May I just respond?
Sorry, so go
Let me
ahead.
just close a
Hold
loop
on.
there. I think it's a personal opinion, and I may not be speaking for anyone other than myself. But if we were to get involved in a citywide campaign, I don't think we should be the ones setting the goals and objectives. And I'm willing to leave the discussion at this point, but a little bit of concern here.
Okay. All right.
I have a question, if that's all right then. Sorry, I sound so gross. That's why I decided to be online today. But Jordan, thank you for your presentation, first of all. And I wondered, I think at one point in your presentation, you touched upon New York State working on this in some capacity through Daniel's Law. But I
Yes.
don't recall that was addressed much. Could you speak to what that is exactly?
Yeah, sorry, there's so much to cover, and I think this kind of goes back to the point your colleague was just making for, so thank you for highlighting that as well. So Daniel's Law is some state legislation that is the same thing that we are trying to achieve, again, that non-police response, but it would impact the whole state as opposed to New York City. Now, one of the key caveats, though, is that the way that Be Heard currently operates is if Daniel's Law passed, Be Heard wouldn't even be eligible in its current functioning to be like a response option under Daniel's Law. And it has to do with some Medicaid billing and some other specific type of things. But basically what Daniel's Law is, it's named after Daniel Prude, who was a young man who was killed by police in Rochester, New York, is creating basically these non-police response systems for different parts of the state using mobile crisis teams, which are a state program basically, but the problem or the current problem with mobile crisis is that it can take up to hours to respond. So part of the tension or of why, you may prefer one to the other has to do with how quickly are people responding. But I know that was kind of like a big or not like the best overview. I can get you specifically the legislation and send it to you as well. I don't have it off the top of my
No,
head.
that's great. I was just looking that up too. I think it's Senate SD 50 in the New York State Senate. And
Yeah, Baruch is
was-
the
yeah, and it was passed by the New York State Senate Committee on, oh, sorry, what is it? I want to say mental health. That might not be right. I just looked it up real quick, but
I think
there
so.
is some movement on the state level is my point.
There's also the Daniels Law Task Force, which is led by Commissioner Sullivan from the Office of Mental Health. So there definitely is an appetite for this, and peer work is a very big movement. Peers are not a new thing to be used. I don't know if they're used in Washington Heights, but I know in Brooklyn, in certain parts, there are violence interrupters. And violence interrupters are basically peers. They're just people who are former gang members, most likely, who go in and de-escalate situations of gang violence. And again, it's this idea of those who have lived in specific situations and know what it feels like to be in that, know how to kind of de-escalate in a way that others don't.
All
I
right,
think some participants on the Zoom have questions. Someone said that there were raised hands.
yeah, I'm gonna,
Okay.
well, if we're finished with the committee,
No, I have a comment. One thing.
okay, go ahead, Heidi or Jody?
No, I'm right.
Okay, but back to
I-
OC.
Yeah, I just feel, I guess question that I have in my head is that, okay, let's say EMT and peers are going to de-escalate the situation. And they don't, one of the things that I know the police is saying, you can never know what you're getting into until you get into the location. And who knows what is going to surprise them once they're there. So I kind of not sure that not having a police presence in some form is the right approach. Just because of that, I mean, just because you really don't know what you're getting into until you're there.
Yeah, I would just respond to that and say that two things. One, currently there are response teams, Be Heard teams responding without police to, situations like this. So that already exists. And two, police can respond. We can have police go with the Be Heard team and have the Be Heard team lead. It's more so shifting from that kind of default mechanism of, this is what a police officer should be doing, or like that this is in their realm of expertise. I think that, again, if there's a threat of violence, if there's a weapon, right, totally fair game, makes sense. But for a generic type of situation where someone may be, hearing voices or is, I've heard stories of individuals who've self-soothed and upset their neighbors because maybe they were singing to themselves or, playing instruments and type of things. And depending on how they're met with that response, even if the police officer isn't the one responding, but the things of like seeing a uniform or the lights or the sounds, those can be triggers. So it's more so thinking about how can we transform the whole experience to lead to less situations of violence or trauma for everyone around. So I hear you on that, OC.
Back to Richard.
Jordan, while you were presenting, you made a brief comment that you thought revisions in the dispatch system either should be or could be an important part of this process. Could you expand on that a little bit? Just because I think the recent comment pointed in that direction.
100%. Are people familiar with 988 at all?
Not a hell of a lot.
Okay. So
Yeah.
988 is a 3-digit number that basically operates kind of like 911, but it's like a suicide line or a mental health crisis line. And it is countrywide. And one of the things that they actually just changed is to have geolocation or geo-routing now. So before, when you would call 988, it would recognize you by your area code. And advocates said that's not right. Instead of having your area code, it should locate where you are. Maybe not physically, but like your general region, because that way it can connect you to services. For instance, I have a 516 area code. I grew up on Long Island. I haven't lived there in, 15 years. I've lived in the city, being connected to a service there wouldn't do me any good. So part of this is thinking about, instead of using 911 as the traditional dispatch system, you could, if you invested into 988, have that be a dispatch program that has interoperability with 911, so they could send each other calls back and forth by saying like, hey, maybe this isn't our right call, but I'm going to send you to 988 so you can talk to a peer crisis counselor, or they're going to send you the appropriate type of mental health response. Because the 911 operator, like I said before, only gets 1 day of mental health training. They're not really suited to tell you about like all of the different types of programs or being able to connect you to care in that type of crisis. It's more about what type of dispatch is being sent out. And when there's a nuance needed for understanding what type of that dispatch is needed, it might not make sense for that traditional body to be the one to continue to do that role.
All right, yeah, Mike, do you want to ask a question about this mental health issue?
Hi guys, good evening. I actually everything that was said is 100% on point. So I actually have an experience where 3 years ago my mom passed away, and I came home after her service to go to sleep, and I woke up to banging at my door. There was maybe about 6 officers at my door with riot shields, because an ex of mine had made a malicious call, vindictive call, basically saying that I wanted to like kill myself. So a suicidal ideation call, which wasn't true. I told NYPD I was fine. There was no indication that I was, harm to myself or anybody. They insisted to come in, so not to draw any attention to my apartment. They came in. Then we waited for a little while for EMS to come, and a cop had to go downstairs to get EMS. And EMS finally came up because they were, just talking in the car and in the ambulance. And instantly, before they even seen me, they already told the cop that they were going to take me to the hospital, even though the cop told them that I was asleep, I was fine. I was just, I was asleep. That's why I wasn't responding to whoever was trying to get in touch with me. They even said he's probably not going to go with you guys. They instantly kept on saying they're going to take, I'm going to have to go with them. So they came upstairs and basically took me against my will. I told them I was fine. There was no indication I was, at risk. I told them that my mom works in the medical, in the medical field. I know my rights. They still were very, very unprofessional about the whole situation. And, I wound up going for evaluation, which luckily wasn't the full evaluation, but it was only 8 hours. But that 8 hours was, I can never get back. I now suffer from PTSD because of it. People in authority positions or even the hospitals I don't like going to, and that's putting now my health at risk also because, I can't sometimes do proper things that I need to do to take care of my own health. And, the 988 number, the only thing with that is I don't really care for it a lot. And this is where I think that the peer part comes in, because the hotline operators, all they do is really, they're taking statistics down. That's all it really is. So if somebody's in a true mental health crisis, they're asking you, how much drugs do you take? How much do you do this? How much do you do that? And it's all statistics. And by the end of everything, it's like, they're just like, here are your resources. Now you have to go and call them yourself. And so I think honestly, the whole mental health care system needs to have a whole reconstructive thing done onto it. But I think first and foremost, having somebody who could relate to the individual at hand who's at risk or, going through their crisis is, I think, the best out of everything, out of the police, out of EMS, out of social work. It's somebody who can relate to that person because they'll know how to, respond. They'll know what may come next, So it's like, I think that's the biggest thing that needs to be done right now. And just as far as like the police response and the EMS, I think, that isn't really, everybody needs to be on the same page, because I was told that it could, it all depends on the EMS person and whatnot. And that's not a good answer. That's not, an acceptable answer. And, even though, I went through what I went through, I had hundreds of lawyers. I went, to ask them, even personal injuries lawyers. All of them said no. I found one person who took my case, and I wound up settling for 6 figures. And even the senator who was chair of the board for mental health at the time couldn't even tell me why this happened. So it's a really serious and it's a very serious thing that needs to be looked at. But yeah, that was it. I just related to everything that she had said. So thank you guys.
Thank you
All
for
right,
sharing.
thank you. What a horrible story, a horrible situation you went through. So you ended up suing the city and then got a settlement?
Well, it wasn't specifically the city, so it was ambulance company contracted within the city, which is another issue is like city needs to evaluate who they're actually contracting, because this specific ambulance company has been in trouble before. They've even been on the news before for inappropriate things being done, and it's
You mind sharing their name?
Well,
Why not? Should be public information.
so it's what is the name? Jesus, I just forgot. She put me on the spot.
I'm sorry, I don't mean.
Citywide Mobile.
okay, so it wasn't actually EMS,
Yeah, it was EMS company. Mm-hmm.
a private ambulance would respond?
Well, they're contracted with 911.
Yeah,
There's
Okay.
a massive EMT shortage.
Yeah,
It actually tracks.
And they're probably getting paid by
Like contract,
what
yeah.
kind of action you're right, bring it to a hospital, they get more. There you go.
Yeah.
all right, well, Mike, thank you for letting us know about your experience.
Oh,
All right, so what, Jordan, we're gonna, just have a discussion among ourselves and try to figure out how we can, be involved with this issue and to hopefully work with you on it. And we'll be back in touch.
Please do.
Steve,
I'm
And
sorry,
I have a hands up, Steve.
who is this?
It's Julio.
Oh, Julio. Yeah, go ahead, Julio.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Julio Batista is the Director of Community Affairs Liaison with the New York Presbyterian Hospital.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a suggestion to the committee, and maybe you will want to maybe refer this presentation to Charlie Corliss and the Northern Manhattan Agenda Mental Health Committee to listen to it. I mean, this is a committee that meets every other month.
Right.
It encompasses all the community mental health providers in Northern Manhattan. And I'm sure that it'd be worthwhile for them to listen to this and see if, they'd like to weigh in on this issue as well.
Excellent suggestion. I will forward the Charlie Corliss's contact information to Jordan. Excellent idea.
Steve, just in both of you, in the context of that, I just did a Google search on citywide mobile transport or emergency. And the first 10 or 12 things that come up are lawsuits with different plaintiffs. Whatever the story is, it's a widespread story.
All right, so maybe we have to look into that further as to whether or not, does it indicate whether the city is still using them?
I didn't get that far. I
Yeah,
was so struck by
Yeah,
citywide
Yes.
versus Jackson, Smith, Jones.
okay, yeah. All right, well,
I will go,
Steve,
but thank
an
you
issue
so
for-
much.
sorry, Jordan, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, thank you so much for all of your time and comments. And the other thing that I was going to say is, regardless of comment of like even suggestions of things for us to tighten up or work on, please send it our way. I think that all of it will help us just get closer to getting peers on these teams, which is really my #1 goal.
Okay, great, because we're not bashful about making suggestions.
That's
So-
totally fine. Listen,
Okay.
I work in coalition, so I work with lots of different people, and I have to, always kind of, it can be like, what is it, herding cats that they say? Yeah, it's kind of like herding cats sometimes. And I like to get the feedback because then I can go back to the group and be like, see, other people said what I said.
All right, well, I'm allergic to cats, so I don't know how that.
Oh, well,
Very
we can
good.
do good dogs. But have a great
I'm-
night, everyone. Thank
I'm
you.
allergic to them too. All right, well, thank you very much, and I hope that this is just the beginning of an ongoing relationship that we'll have with you.
Agreed. Bye.
All right, take care. Thank you so much. All right. Next on our agenda is a presentation by Stephanie Andujar, the Director of School-Based Services for the Emma Bowen Community Service Center, also known as the Upper Manhattan Mental Health Center. And Stephanie is here in the room with us. And
Hello, everyone.
and I feel obligated to mention whenever anybody from her organization comes to one of our meetings, that Emma Bowen at one time was a member of Community Board 12 in the late 70s, early 80s.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. Can everyone see my screen or the screen that's being shared right now?
Jacob says yes.
Okay, great.
Carmen says yes.
Yep.
And everyone here in the room says yes.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Technology is not my strong suit, but so thank you all for having me here. I'm one of the directors of one of the 9 programs inside the Emma Bowen Community Health Center, otherwise known as the Upper Manhattan Community Health Center.
And we should mention, by the way, that it's located currently at 1727 Amsterdam Avenue at 145th Street. But it does include and encompass the Washington Heights Inwood community.
That's right. And thank you for saying currently. The reason is because we are in the midst of moving our entire location down 10 blocks to 135th Street. And so we'll be closer to you all, but we're still.
No, we'll be further away.
We'll be further away.
Further away, yeah.
We'll be further away, but we will still be serving the same community.
Right.
With the same passion and zeal, just in a newer building with sort of better quality resources.
Oh.
So once again, my name is Stephanie Andujar, and I am an LCSW, and I'm also the director of the school-based mental health program, which again is just one of the 9 programs that are inside Emma Bowen. So the reason I'm here is because first off, we are a newer program inside the Emma Bowen Community Center. And so I'd like to firstly just share a little bit more information as to who we are and what we do. I have some flyers, some physical flyers here that I'm gonna pass along to you all. And I'm happy to also send virtual flyers along to the folks joining us online. So one of the first goals of this presentation is to inform you all of this program and also provide you all with context as to why this program exists, and hopefully a call to action to spread the information about this program, because yes, I am biased, I'm the director, but I do believe it is an incredibly strong program and can offer a lot of great resources to youth and families in your district. So without further ado, I'm gonna just continue on with a little bit about what we do. So essentially, we are a Article 31 clinic, being provided and funded by Office of Mental Health as well as the Department of Education. And so what they decided to do based on a lot of community needs is that they decided to fund these Article 31 satellite clinics so that we can then open up specific clinics inside public and private schools or charter schools, really. So there was I gathered up some data and some great statistics that I thought would be relevant to our particular program and to share today. One of them being that as of 2022, there's been a comptroller New York State report that states that as of 2022, per 162 students, every 162 students constitutes one social worker inside schools. So I just want to let that sink in again. That means one social worker or counselor per 162 students as of 2022. Don't know what you believe in that, but I find that statistic egregious because the need is so high. The need can be so high that I myself was a school social worker for about 10 years. And I know for sure that there were some of my kiddos needed daily check-ins, needed daily support. And often it wasn't just the student, it was also encompassing the families, community resources, the teachers, in order to have a high quality intervention and some positive outcomes. So that is one piece of statistic I wanted to share. Another piece is that we currently service specifically more so than any other population, the Latinx Hispanic population. Why is it important that we service this population? Because there are additional egregious statistics to share about the mental health needs in that population. One of them being that there was a 2022 statistics from the CDC that stated that Hispanic students from ages grade 9 through 12 actually had the highest rate of suicidality compared to any other race. And that was in 2022. Another statistic from the same year stated that Latino Hispanic students actually were half as likely to start antidepressants as any other race, Black, white, Asian, all other races. And then one more statistic to add to that is that Hispanic and Latinx population are the highest uninsured in terms of medical insurance in the country, in the nation. So all of those statistics point to just very high needs, point to a lot of sort of hidden obstacles, and point to the need to fill this gap. So with all those statistics we've shared, I want to share a little bit about our program and what we are doing to meet that gap and close the gap eventually. So we are a child and adolescent school-based mental health program, and we believe in a collaborative care model. What this means is that we not only service children and families, but we are located in the school, which also then means, I like to say we have a little bit of a captive audience, right? Wherein that we have less no-shows because students do come to school every day, and we can grab them from music class in order to provide the therapy that they might need. We also, because we are in close proximity with the school system, we can often communicate with teachers, with staff, with everyone involved. And as we know, kiddos, school-age kids tend to spend a majority of their time inside school buildings. So we thought this was the perfect place. And so with that being said, I want to deepen in and let you all know a little bit more about the services that we currently provide. So we don't just provide individual therapy, and individual therapy can take place in half an hour, 45 minutes, sometimes 1 hour increments. We also provide psychiatric evaluations. So because we are a mental health center, we also have access to nurse practitioners, psychiatrists, and we are also able to then provide medication management to kids, which in my opinion, and the data will show that it helps with ease of access to medication and medication management. We also provide lots of psychoeducation, lots of parenting skills, and lots of support all throughout. As you can see from the presentation, these are all of the different, and I want to name this list is not exhaustive, but these are just some highlights of some of the themes that we are able to support. So we have not been around for very long. We've mainly been around for the past 2 or so years. And I am a new director as of July, but I'm very proud to say that as of July, we've already made drastic and very positive changes. So one of my beliefs in coming in as the new director is to not just increase the number of kids that we are able to support, but also really deepen the quality of services that we provide. So although I am very passionate about providing every child the service they need around mental health, my biggest passion is to ensure that the kids that we do have the honor to support are actually getting the services that they need and are able to sort of exit our program in a much better place than they entered it. What does that mean? That means that we have staff who are all Spanish speaking, because that is about 90% of our population. That also means that all of our staff are certified, that they all get supervision by myself every week. I'm also proud to say that we are now trauma informed. My staff actually all participated and are certified in trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy or TFCBT, with a focus on Latinx population. We also recently completed a training on EMDR. Let me know if you want me to expand on that. I feel like I'm talking in alphabet soup now, but EMDR is eye movement rapid desensitization, and it is a trauma-informed, validated modality that can actually not just support with coping with trauma, but it can resolve trauma. So all very exciting. And the reason I'm sharing this is because these are not meant to just be services for coping skills, Band-Aid, keep going. These are meant to be really beautiful services that can shift and support both children and families to receive just higher mental health quality services that would otherwise not be provided. And so with that, like I mentioned, we do believe in providing all of specifically the Latinx population and everyone in between, highly effective bilingual clinicians. We currently have another clinician who is Arabic speaking. We are looking to have another clinician who can speak French, because we know the demographics are changing, but most of our clinicians are bilingual in Spanish. And through the collaboration with school members and school stakeholders, we hope that the child will experience more of a holistic intervention. So once again, a little bit about me. I really do believe in providing young people with strong mental health supports throughout the process.
One more second, is that a picture of you?
That's a picture of me. It might not look like me right now, but I promise it is.
You sure? Okay.
You know,
See, folks do change their.
so, that, I mean, full disclosure, that was a professional makeup for my sister's wedding day.
Oh, okay, all
I
right.
don't look like that every day, but
Oh, well,
that is me.
Okay, well, that looks like a special day. I better not go further on that. Yeah,
That was a special day.
it's a,
Please
So-
carry on. Thank you.
So this presentation, does have my picture in it because we do provide this presentation to lots of the schools that we are currently in or trying to establish a collaboration and connection with. And I can tell you a little bit more about some of those schools. I did have a video here, but since it's a PDF, it's not able to play.
okay,
Just wanted to name though that even this video, which was posted up on YouTube and it's from a Hispanic organization, it does offer lots of that data that I shared in the beginning. Just to name once again that the need is very strong and that I think we are in the right place to provide that need. I also want to name that although we do provide and focus up our services on the Upper Manhattan population, we are specifically looking to connect with schools within your district. And so those are the schools that we are targeting, primarily because those are the highest needs that we have within our catchment. So I want to talk with you all about a few of the schools that we're currently in. Right now, we have two main school collaborators. One of them is PS5, which is a public school. And I'll talk about that in a minute. The other one is Tech Charter School. We're currently in the middle school, and we will be opening up a clinic in the early childhood school and also in the elementary school in the next 2 months. And we are currently in the process of opening up another clinic at PS 98, which is another school within that area. We are also in conversations with a high school within this area as well. And what I mean by conversations is that it is quite a lengthy process to open these clinics because it can lead to a process of 6 to 8 months. where the many applications need to go in through OMH, Department of Youth, and also the DOE in order to open up these clinics. But once they are open, we are able to actually house a clinician in that location, and that clinician can meet with all of the clients and the students. Another thing that I'm excited to name is that in opening up a clinic inside the school, this actually comes at no specific additional cost to the school, which is big, right? Because we know that oftentimes schools have specific and very targeted budgets, and they don't always have those extra resources. So it's a great point for me to name that the only thing the school has to do is to provide us with an actual space with a door to ensure privacy and HIPAA compliance. And outside of that, we will purchase everything from the rugs to the desk to all of the supplies to provide an actually trained, certified, supervised clinician who can support the students in their building so that the ratio doesn't have to be 1 to 162 anymore. And so.
All right, so for the benefit of anybody who may not be aware, PS5 is the school located at the western end of Dyckman Street, at the Harlem River Drive.
Eastern ends.
That's what I meant to say. So, thank you. The eastern end. And where is, I'm not sure where the TEP Charter School is now located. It used to be in some trailers outside of GW High School, but did they build their own building now?
They did. They have a
Yes.
beautiful new building.
Are they the ones on Sherman Avenue?
They are.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, I believe it is Sherman.
So what's the one on 10th Avenue and 202?
That's that's what is it, 252, 18? The two schools that are way up in Inwood are moving into that new building. But TEP is now the one on Sherman Avenue? Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yes, yeah, it's a beautiful new
Yes,
location.
right.
We have a clinic inside of that school.
Very good.
So that school in particular, the TEP Middle School, they have 4 full-time social workers, which is a much better ratio than other DOE schools.
Yeah.
And let me just say that our clinician, who would be the 5th clinician in that building, her caseload is already full. Right? And so that tells me that need is still very high.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of the students in her caseload are students or young people, clients who also need medication management. And so because we have that additional support, we are a really good fit for that community. And so a bit of a success story I wanted to share about PS5 is that in that school, we actually have 2 full-time clinicians right now. And that's because, when we first started a couple of years ago, the need was so high. And they actually, the principal himself stated that in the past year, they had 80 new enrolled students who were all migrants. And so given that recent and large kind of wave of enrollment, there was obviously more of a need to provide Spanish language services, but then also more holistic services, because often these families came in having experiences of homelessness, of PTSD, given their journey. Often these migrant families were also refugees. So there are a lot of compounding needs that are appearing at the school's door. And with that, we have increased, now that we have 2 clinicians there, we've increased our services. And we are currently focusing our energies and also engaging the parents through psychoeducation, stress and coping workshops and things like that.
But in addition to these schools, are you offering the same mental health services to youths at 1727 Amsterdam? Is that correct?
That's right. So
Okay.
within our particular program, the school-based program, we do primarily provide services to schools who we have partnerships with.
Right.
And so right now, all of our students comprise of young people who come from either PS5, any of the TEP, middle, elementary, or early education school, and then also PS98. However, at Emma Bowen, as an organization, we also have 3 additional other child-based programs. One of them is an outpatient child clinic, which currently has a census of over 600 students, of young people anywhere between 4 to age of 21. And they do provide outpatient services. We also have an early childhood clinic for anyone 0 to 4, which is usually a lot more parent focused. And then we also have an early childhood school, which currently has a smaller census, but that's because each of the classrooms have 8 to 10 students, and most of the students have a diagnosis of autism. And so the goal of that program is to actually support the students through integrating, so that by the time they leave the early childhood school, they will be integrated into not just special education classes, but just the general population classes.
So how many teachers per 8 to 10 students, how many teacher in a class like that?
Yeah, so in the early childhood school, which again is another program at Emma Bowen, there are 2 teachers inside every 8 to 10 classroom. And right now in that program, there are 4 classrooms. They are opening up 2 additional classrooms.
Really, there's space for them?
Yeah,
Because I thought when you move, I thought you're losing space.
we do have a smaller space, but some programs, due to functionality, are actually going to receive larger spaces.
Oh,
My program, for example, because we do have satellite schools located inside schools, my program is transparently only going to get about 3 offices inside that building. And more so because our clinicians' offices, the main places, are going to be inside the schools.
Yeah.
The offices inside the building are going to be to have collaterals, provide our NP psycho space, and then also support any students who might need after-school support.
now the school-based programs that you mentioned
Yes.
seem to be targeted to younger kids, not teenagers. And as you mentioned earlier, and as this committee has expressed in the past, there's clearly a problem with the disproportionately large percentages of Latina teenagers who are suicidal. What's the phrase? Who have suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have a plan to how to reach out to those girls?
Yeah, so I think that right now, our program is primarily servicing the younger population, but our program is designed to service anyone in K through 12. So technically, we can service anyone up to the age of 21. And so that's why we are currently in communication with a high school in the area. I'm not able to provide the name at this point because we're just in initial conversations, but that is one of my goals of being here. It is to get information out, and my hope is that if you all know any high schools or middle schools that might be in need of a program such as this, where they might not have additional funding, but they do have the need that and a space available, that we can potentially start a partnership. Because I actually was a DOE social worker at a high school for 5 years up in the Bronx, and I know the need is very, very high when it comes to really high quality mental health supports, especially at that age. And I would say boys, girls, and anyone non-binary is in need of that support. Particularly, I also wanted to mention, now that we're kind of mentioning gender, LGBTQ population is in really high need of additional support, given the high rates of suicidality amongst that particular population as well. And my clinicians are all specifically trying to work around that. Yes.
As you seek connections, are you talking to local elected officials?
I am currently not yet, but this is our first kind of drawing out and bringing it to the community. I know my coworker Jim was supposed to be here, but he couldn't make it, but
Let me
go ahead.
make one suggestion. Our current councilwoman, Carmen Del Rosa, in her previous role in the state assembly, helped move legislation on teen suicide, and particularly teen Latina girls. She did a lot of, I don't know how much that's in her current mission, but it's certainly in her memory bank and research and everything else. And I think contact me very
I'm sure it's still a prime, interest of ours. But in terms of high schools, and, Julio Batiste will probably be speaking about this in a little while. New York Presbyterian has a clinic at George Washington, but we do have other high schools, in this area such as, Gregorio Luperone and, I'm sure, I believe there are at least two others. And I'm not, they may not have any, such.
Yeah, I think they do, Steve. Gregorio
What's
Luperón
that?
has some.
Luperone has one? Okay.
Yeah.
Did,
What is the PS 52 is what, elementary?
yes, yeah, but, does, the school in the square have a high school? I have a sense there are at least two other high schools. I think there may be one based up at, the school north of Nagle Avenue. It's affiliated, I think, with City College. There are some other high schools.
What about the one across the street from you?
We are in conversation with
Okay.
that. There's actually two schools in that building.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And, I'm in conversation with them as well.
Okay,
One other thing I want to mention is even in the schools that do have a co-located, mental health clinic inside of it. I've often heard complaints that those clinics only take particular insurances. We do take mainly Medicaid, however, we also take commercial insurance. And then in the event that there are any students who are uninsured, we also are able to support with obtaining insurance because any child in New York City, regardless of immigration status, should have access to insurance. And will have or can have access to insurance. Another thing is we have a sliding scale for anybody who may have, let's say, an insurance we do not serve, where it's $15 a session, which again, it is just a lot more accessible. Our hope is that we would not want to turn away anybody who is at need and who would be eligible. And again, if it was just, let's say, a 15-year-old off the street, meaning they're not in any of the schools we currently service, then we would just refer them to our outpatient clinic, which does service anybody in that age group.
so who is funding the program? DOH?
So it is multiple places,
Okay.
DOH and OMH. And then we bill to Medicaid. And most commercial insurance.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay,
Can I post this flyer on social media?
You can absolutely post a flyer. Also, if you would like a virtual flyer, I'm happy to send that to you. I have a little bit of a call to action. I'm asking.
Yes, yeah.
If you all would like to put your information on here.
yeah, well, you could just send it to me and I'll pass it around.
Perfect,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, and then, and also please send me the PowerPoint.
Yes, I'll be happy to send you the PowerPoint with that picture that you pointed out.
It's a beautiful picture.
I guess so. Apparently doesn't look like me, but we'll take it. But I'll be happy to send all of this PowerPoint and also the flyers. I have the flyers
Very
in
good.
Spanish and English
Very
and
good.
also in French and Arabic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Steve, can you please connect Stephanie to Youth and Education Chair? I wrote that in the chat whenever you get a chance. I'm not sure if you have her email. I think it would be
Oh, yeah,
helpful
yeah.
for her to present
Oh,
to
yeah,
the
that's a good
committee,
idea. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'll forward, yeah,
especially since she's trying to find the schools. The Youth and
Right.
Education Chair, Domingo, he's very involved with a lot of the schools. In
yeah,
our
very good
district.
point.
So you should definitely reach out to them and present, and I'm sure he can get you connected.
All right, good suggestion. All right, so, Carmen Paulino, who is, off in the stratosphere here, is suggesting that, you also make a presentation to our Youth and Education Committee, and I'll send you, the information for that.
Thank you so much. I really
course.
appreciate all of your collaboration, your great questions, and just your time. I won't keep you anymore unless you have any further questions. But I'm happy to talk at length about this.
Speak to government officials, that was a
And I
good
think-
point.
I'll give you the contact information.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And I
You wanna
Manny
write down
too.
here?
And what's the name of that school that, was located at St. Jude's and then, opened up, a space at 47th Street?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it's still there.
Thank you.
There's a high school up there too, isn't there? There's enough?
I thought the school is still at the church.
Carmen's
Oh,
representative is in person at the general meeting.
What about 10 to
Sometimes
2
she's
o'clock?
virtual, sometimes. Camila.
Yeah, but I thought they also,
Camilla is there. What I was gonna do was either give her Camilla's name.
Yeah.
The chief of staff.
Yeah.
James Burke, to come
Yeah.
in.
yeah. Well, yeah, but both of them.
Yeah, I'd be happy to contact everybody.
Many, speak to many.
Yeah, yeah, and I also want to name, right now, we are in that place. My organization and my program in particular, I know is at that place where I can confidently say we have a very strong, high quality program that is looking to fill a need. I wasn't able to say that in July, I had just come into it, but I'd like to say that since July, we had a census of about 78 students. Now we're up to 127. So we are growing, we are
Okay.
hiring more staff, we are training.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, very
Jacob, put that in the minutes. They're currently serving 127 students
127
in the two schools.
in the two schools currently, yes.
But-
But
but
it's more like 4 schools
Oh.
because TEP is 3 different schools
Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
okay,
So it's TEP Middle School, TEP Elementary, and TEP Early Childhood.
okay, four schools.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, that's good. Okay,
Okay,
Thank you all so much.
all right,
absolutely.
all right. So you didn't need to have Jim tonight.
I guess not,
Yeah, you didn't do it.
yeah.
Okay, good, but don't tell him that.
I won't.
Right. All right, very good. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And then please, continue to keep us informed about, the work that you're doing in the local schools. I mean, I actually, while you're still here, let me have Julio, speak about the work that, the similar clinics that New York Presbyterian has in some of the local schools. You should at least be aware of that.
Well, sure, Steve, thank you. I mean, let me just say the first that, the school-based health centers,
One second,
unlike,
Julio, hold on. Okay, then go ahead.
So I just want to throw a little plug in there, just to say that if the school-based health centers is not just a safe space for students to come in, get some of their, medical preventive services, but it's also, I guess when we went to school and, one of the students had something happen, you call the parents. The parents come, they take the kids home. The parents go through all the stress because, they were working. And now they have to leave because they have to take care of the kids who may have gotten sick. So, those things on the school-based health center sort of prevents that as well. So it provides some sort of relief also for the parents when kids get sick. I'd just like to add that the Division of Community and Population Health operates 7 school-based health centers serving more than 20 public schools in Harlem, Washington Heights, and in the Bronx. Services are available to all the enrolled students. Their service regardless of their, the insurance that they have, and there's no copay to the parents. So all the services are covered, and none of this goes really, as I mentioned, none of the expenses really go to the parents of the students. There are 7 school-based health centers just for the purpose of Community Board 12, which is very territorial. I would say that we have the George Washington High School educational campus, which is really the oldest one that and the first one that was created. We have IS 52 up in Inwood, which is by Academy Street. IS 143 campus, which is on 182nd. And of course, some of these schools have more than,
Yeah.
They have shared spaces. And the final one is really the Stitt Educational Campus, which is IS 164. And
And that
that's on 164th Street as well. So those are our school-based health centers. Happy again to have our team come to the committee and provide more broad detail of the services and the number of students that they serve.
All right, very good. Do you have, Um, is, is there some benefit in having you and Stephanie, communicate with each other about, your various programs and make sure that there's some coordination if that's necessary?
I don't see any harm in that. I think it's always a good thing to be able to connect and see how we can be supportive. I know that especially in times of the budget, so, it's important for all of us all the groups that do provide school-based health services to come together and support each other in terms of the budget, but also in terms of services. So we'd be more than happy to start the relationship.
All right, very good. So I'm gonna share your information, with Stephanie.
That'd be great. Sure.
Thank you so much, Julio. Yeah, glad to connect with you, even to share best practices and how we can kind of strengthen each
All right,
other.
all right, but there appears to be a difference though between the way that your clinics operate and Stephanie's, because even where somebody has no insurance, you don't charge any kind of fee. You cover the uninsured,
Yeah.
and in your case, you request a fee on a sliding scale.
Yes, then
Yeah.
it's $15.
Yeah.
That's-
All right, so there's a little bit of a difference there. All right. All right, very good. So hopefully, I will have been the matchmaker and I would have brought the two of you together.
Sounds good.
Okay, very good.
Thank
So, Richard,
Do you need to go into a presentation here? Because my comment can hold till after the presentation.
well, I think I'm gonna let Julio, do his regular report.
Let me just real briefly on the kind of connection. I think it would be worth looking at how we could call the hearing or just a discussion here on the breadth of mental health services in the community, possibly doing it jointly with Housing and Human Services.
Yeah.
Over the past few years, so much of CB12's concentration on mental health, attention to mental health services
Right.
is focused on one particular provider. And there's so much other good services in the community. I think we should do something to bring that forward.
We haven't had a meeting like that, bringing in all of the mental health providers
Or even
in a number of years.
or even a series of 3 or 1 per meeting, or just
Yeah.
something that changes how CB12 looks at mental health services.
All right. All right, good suggestion. All right, Julio, do you want to give your regular report or do you want to?
Sure.
good.
Sure. Why not? Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
So first of all, let me Happy New Year, everyone. I mean, let me start off with wishing all of you a happy, healthy, and a productive 2025. I'll start off with the COVID because COVID is still around. Unfortunately, it's not gone away. So in total, we have I mean throughout our different hospitals in the system, we have a total of 73 patients. For Columbia, which includes the Allen Hospital and the Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital, we have a total of 21. That is broken down into 13 patients at Milstein, 4 at the Allen, and 4 at the Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital. I know Steve had asked some information in terms of the respiratory, situation.
This norovirus that
Right.
seems to be going around.
Yeah.
which
Unfortunately,
seems
our I was not able to get the information from infectious control folks on this. I put in the word, so as soon as I get that, I'll share that with you.
Okay, very good.
You can share with the committee. In terms of outreach, I just would like to report on a couple of things. One is, and I'll go chronological order, on Saturday, this coming Saturday, we are continuing to do our Three Kings celebration. We're doing this in partnership with United Palace, which they're hosting us there. And we're doing this in collaboration also with 3 local organizations, which is the Mexican Coalition. We're also doing this with the Renaissance Institute and also with Enido de Esperanza as well. And we expect about 600 kids or their parents. We realize that as you mentioned, norovirus and, respiratory. So the parents may come pick up the toys for their kids, but we want to make sure that that tradition continues for them. The other one is we are hosting a asthma workshop. I shared the flyer with Steve. Hopefully, the board and Steve may share that with the rest of the committee members. So on Thursday, January 7th, from 5:30 to 6:30, we will host a webinar on asthma. So trying to get the word out. So hopefully you could, the committee could help us with that. There's any other. Trying to remember if there's any other thing. Well, there is one other thing I would like to suggest to the committee, and is that as the year starts, the Community Population Health has a vast portfolio of different community programs and services they provide. I would like to, sort of ask this committee to perhaps, allow some time for the our Division of Community Population Health to come before the committee and be able to share, what are those different programs and what they're offering, so that this committee could get a broader understanding of those services out in the community. And so hopefully maybe if some time like March will work, it'll be great if we could come before the committee and be able to present.
Yeah, well, March, I think, sounds very good, because I think I already have two presentations lined up for February. So yeah, why don't you just assume right now that then we'll do it for March, and
Okay.
Work something out.
Sure.
So that sounds like a good idea.
Mhm.
And let me just ask: is there any news about the new building to be constructed on Broadway between 169th and 170th?
So
I thought the demolition was going to take place towards the end of last year.
Yeah, well, demolition takes a while. Yeah, so there is demolition taking place. Started late September. So the interior, they're doing the interior first, and that is currently taking place. And once that is completed, then, as I mentioned, the site will be turned over to Columbia for them to develop. But demolition is taking place both at that location and also at the Eye Institute on Fort Washington and 165th Street.
Right. Okay. So we don't see it, but it's happening inside that.
Correct.
Inside the storefronts there.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's very similar to what I mean. If you go 165th Street and Fort Wash, you sort of notice there's a lot of scaffolding. A lot of the work, as demolition is taking place indoors. Unlike the 170th Street, you just don't have that scaffolding outside.
All right, and of course I have to ask: has a decision been made about the new restaurant operator for the Coogan site?
I have not heard anything. That's a good point, Steve. I will make an inquiry in terms of that. I know that
deeply disappointed. Deeply disappointed.
Yeah.
Nothing's ready for your dinner tonight.
I know, it's unbelievable. I mean, I thought they had narrowed it down to just one potential operator, and they were trying to figure out whether or not there was an SLA issue, and I thought that was resolved. So I wish.
I'm not sure if the liquor license has been resolved. I mean, I assume it has to come before the board as well for that approval. So
but first you need to have an operator.
Right. So I'll get some further details on it and report back on the Coogan space.
Very good. All right. Thank you. Any questions for Julio? No. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We're back to talking about COVID-19. So let me give a short report based on the latest statistics from the Department of Health from its website. Once again, the hospitalization rates in our community are extremely low. In fact, according to the Department of Health website, the hospitalization rate for zip code 40 during the 28-day period from November 22nd to December 19th was at 0, and somehow the hospitalization rate in the other 3 zip codes was less than 0. I don't know what that means, but I guess what it means is that nobody from our community actually got hospitalized for COVID during that period, although Julio is telling us that there are now 21 cases in the Washington Heights Inwood facilities run by New York Presbyterian. But there are, in the last month since we met, there have been 104 new cases, apparently not at a level requiring hospitalization. And there has been, unfortunately, one additional death in the last month. But I guess the good news is the hospitalization rates have remained exceedingly low. So now I turn it over to Pauline Ferrante, assuming that she's still with us.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
She never fails. Very good. Pauline, you're going to talk to us about, among other things, I hope, the norovirus.
Well, I don't have any statistics on norovirus currently, but all of the guidelines in terms of, taking care of yourself, making sure you wash your hands very frequently, that type of thing remains because it is very, very contagious. It spreads easily through contaminated things. And then if your hands are dirty and you touch something and you eat something, that really is how it's transmitted. So we really want people to just maintain all of those COVID type advice in terms of hand washing frequently, using hand sanitizer when you don't have access to soap and water. I am having tech issues, so I'm using my work cell phone. So I'm hoping that I can still share my screen for the flu information. I don't know what is happening. I'm so sorry. Hold on one second. I apologize. This is not what I was hoping to have to do. But you all do know how to access the information on sharing screen. I'm really bad at technology. I apologize, everybody.
You
see your phone.
couldn't be any worse than me.
So you can see my phone,
Which is on Zoom.
which is on Zoom, but that's not what I want to share. I'm so sorry. I'm going to stop share and I will just read everything from the website. And again, I'm sure everybody knows how to access that information, but if you don't, I can do it next month. I can do that whole situation again next month when I have access to my laptop properly. Hopefully, government, it's really hit or miss. Okay, so according to week ending December 21st, the highlights were that influenza did increase from the previous week, and we were seeing more of the influenza A as opposed to influenza B. And the more interesting thing is that there was a 3% decrease of RSV diagnoses from the previous week. So that is good, I suppose. But again, we are seeing a lot of just transmission of flu and other respiratory illness. So we just want to make sure again that everyone who is feeling ill should take lead from Jacob and stay home and be awesome at home. Be able to do your work, but still participate fully, but safely from home. I really can't underline how important that is in terms of preventing transmission, especially school-age children. Like if your child is sick, I know it's really difficult for parents to take off time from work, but they're like school-age children are getting very sick or, having illness because they're in close proximity to each other and they spend all day together. So again, I know it's not easy for parents to take their kids out of school, but it is really important for the health and safety of everyone around you. So again, if you're not feeling well, please stay home. And if you are in other congregate settings, to really pay attention to that as well. For OC, I looked up information on distemper. We don't track that information, but we do have, just like basic information about distemper on our website. So I don't know how helpful that is to you, but if there's anything specific about that particular topic that you need, I'm happy to look further into it for you. We do track, though, canine, and I have this all pulled up specifically for you, and I'm sorry that I cannot share my screen properly.
Parvo? You tracking Parvo?
I don't believe we're tracking Parvo. I don't see that on our information, but we do track canine leptospirosis, which is mostly spread by rodents in the city. So that's the only other thing that we track other than rabies on our website.
Okay, what about the avian flu?
We don't have any tracking for that currently available. I'm not sure whether or not we are tracking it in terms of, internally as an agency and that information. I mean, everything we do pretty much we do put onto our website as public information. But let me just double check with regards to avian flu. I'm not sure.
Right, because they had first they had recall for food, and they had a few cats, including few wildlife.
Was that in New York, though? I don't recall.
No, that
Okay.
was
That was somewhere else in the country, right?
it was Washington State.
Okay. Okay, but
maybe
I will
Minnesota.
definitely look into that for you.
Okay.
And then I believe those were all of my homework assignments from last month, but if there's anything else you'd like me to look into, I'm very happy to do so.
No, the avian flu was the only thing that I was thinking of because it's kind of, I'm not sure to what extent it's spreading, but I mean.
Yeah, I don't see anything specific in terms of tracking on our website. We just have like general information about it.
Okay.
The guy who spoke earlier in our meeting, Mike.
Yes, is he still on? Actually, I wanted to ask if he had the
No,
name so I could follow up directly with who he spoke with.
Oh, did you read his comments in the Q&A?
Yes, about roosters roaming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I never heard about this in the past, but he's no longer with us. So, and I don't know if I don't know if he has an email that he would have registered for the meeting with. We'll have to check it. We'll have to check to see if we can reach him.
Yeah, if you do have an email, I mean, of course, maybe reach out to him to see if it'd be appropriate for me to follow up with him directly. I don't want to just randomly reach out to somebody. But if you do have his email via registration for the webinar, that would be really helpful. I'll look into this. I mean, I can see where we would say it's very difficult for our teams to go out and investigate because we don't have like trapping capacity. So like our teams don't go and capture animals. It's not within our jurisdiction to do that. And then to investigate, I mean, we do. We have teams to go out to investigate. Like, for example, there was a roof of a building owner stored roosters on the roof of their building and the neighboring building complained, and we were able to investigate that situation. But if the roosters are just roaming on the street, like we're not going to, I don't know how we would identify who owned the rooster. So I can kind of understand where our agency is saying that it might be a little difficult, but I will definitely look into it and I will highlight and underscore that this is a problem in the community and that we would like to see something addressed.
I think, unless I'm mistaken, this came up in December at the public safety meeting
Yes,
Unless
yeah,
there's multiple roosters running around, I find it hard to believe that this is not the same issue.
yeah, no,
And
he said that he spoke to public safety, previously. So
yeah,
did,
I was just gonna say in a December meeting there, Officer Navarrete from the 34th Precinct was gonna follow up with his Special Operations Lieutenant about this, and Public Safety hasn't met yet. So I'll bring it up next week at Public Safety too to see if there's any resolution on that front.
okay, can you remember whether, he gave an address at that meeting?
I don't have it in the minutes, so I don't know if he did, but I'll follow up.
Yeah, because you have to have an address to deal with this. All right, well, thank you, Jacob. All right, so maybe we'll be back in touch with you, Pauline, on that question.
Sounds
Are there any other questions for Pauline? All right, seeing none, we're gonna move on. Thank you again, Pauline.
Thank you.
All right, Diego Quintuna, Community Affairs Coordinator for Columbia University Irving Medical Center. Are you still with us?
Hi, good evening.
Oh, thank you, Diego. You have a report to give us.
Yes, it's going to be a very short report. Happy New Year, first of all.
Oh, well, happy New Year to you.
Thank you, thank you. So just a friendly reminder, the Medical Center Neighborhood Fund application is out. We encourage all CBOs to apply to the fund. The deadline to apply is January 29th. Is it possible to drop a link in the chat?
Yeah,
Or
sure.
should- Okay.
Yeah.
I'll drop-
I also sent your report to all of the committee members.
Okay, perfect.
But we should ask the community board to send out this announcement
Yes.
to our general mailing list. So you should send that to Ebenezer Smith. Do you have
Mhm.
Ebenezer's
Yes.
mail?
Yes. Is it the-
You should that same paragraph that you included in your report, you should send to Ebenezer.
Okay, excellent. Next is our annual toy drive. We donated toys to several CBOs, such as the Washington Heights Collegiate Church, the Washington Heights Child Care Center, the 33rd Precinct Council, Fort George Head Start Program, the Guardian Angels, PS 115, and Mama Tango's Daycare. And all the toys were donated by CYMC faculty and staff. And finally, we also did the hands-on STEM initiative, which supports local science classrooms with science supplies to supply essential science resources aimed at enriching STEM curriculums and enhancing student engagement in science education. Excuse me. And we have partnered with 6 schools, PS 132 Juan Pablo Duarte, PSIS 173, and Mr. 24 Patria Maribal, Castlebridge School, Dos Puentes Elementary School, and the Luis Billiard PS 008 School. And that's pretty much it for my report this evening.
All right. Any questions for Diego? Well, Diego, you did also send me this community shuttle guide
Yes.
concerning the shuttle buses that run between the Morningside Heights campus. And actually, what I just learned is that the buses go as far south as 96th Street to the subway station down there at Broadway 96th, and also go from the medical center campus over to Harlem Hospital. So, we only found out recently when a resolution came before the full board that the shuttle service is actually available to non-employees or non-students who are senior citizens or people with disabilities. And that was really a revelation to us. So what this material tells me is that there are apparently signs on the buses that say that the shuttle is available for people with disabilities, the elderly, and individuals with service animals. And you have to provide a valid ID with I guess to prove that you're a senior citizen. that you have a Medicare health insurance card, an accessorized ID card, or a Metro card with the discount for senior citizens or people with disabilities. And what I also assume is that the bus only takes you from the medical center either to Harlem Hospital or down to 125th Street, 116th Street, or 96th Street. It's not going to make stops along the way. It's only going to continue its current route and then leave you off at these same stops, which are designated for the students or employees of the medical center. Is that a fair conclusion on my part?
Yes, that is a fair conclusion. I
right.
could definitely find out to see if there's anything that may be missing in the booklet or any information that I may not know, but I'll
Yeah.
get back to you. But as of right now, I'm assuming yes, that is correct.
All right, so if I take the bus, for instance, over here, it stops outside the Children's Hospital, I believe. If I take it over here at 166th Street, 167th, I'm not going to be able to get off the bus at 155th Street to go home. I have to stay on the bus to go to 125th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this is not really good for me.
Right, but could we, could we get the schedule for the bus?
Yes, it's right here.
Is it in the?
Yeah, it's,
form?
yeah, I sent the material to you today.
Oh, great, it's like, didn't have time to look.
Okay.
But
But, well, actually, this,
I assume there's like
Diego,
an app or something.
this booklet is from 2022. So should we assume that the schedule is still the same?
Yes.
Yes.
We
We did receive physical copies in our offices as well, and they are September from 2022 as well.
So the schedule is still current.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Richard,
Just to note, the same issue is coming up at the Community Board's Aging Committee. And while it's hard to give you information here, can you reach out through staff to the chair of the Aging Committee?
Yes. Yes, I will.
all right,
Thank
very
you.
good.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Steve, I just-
Oh, Jody has a question.
No, well, no, I just wanted to
Oh.
also, the resolution that Leo drafted in
Yes.
traffic and transportation. One of the big problems is that there's not signage on the streets. So
Yes, yes.
it's not information that is
Right.
readily available. And I think that what we're hoping for, is through the resolution, we'll get some signage, to help people
Right,
identify this service, because this service is amazing.
right.
Because what it does do, even though it doesn't drop you off at
No,
your house,
yeah,
Steve,
right.
it does allow express stops
Yes.
along that
Right.
stretch. So it would help people that are on 96 that want
Yes.
to get. to the
Yeah.
hospital.
Yeah, but if you want to go to 125th, 116th, or 96th Street, it works. It's a good service. But Diego, is there a reason why there are no signs at the bus stops?
That's a good question. I personally do not know why there is no signs. But again, I will research and get back to you on that as well.
Yeah,
I
that's,
think it had
What
something to do
discussion?
with DOT and
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
that-
most likely. Mhm.
permission
So,
or.
This was discussed because there was a resolution
Yes.
last month.
Yes,
And there was this discussion about that to allow, we kind of, I don't want to say, but to recommend that the MTA will allow for signage on those particular stops.
yeah, I think
Is it MTA or DOT?
Yeah, it's probably
that controls the
DOT.
signs?
I
I
think
think
Lyle's
it's
looking into it, Lyle Blackwood is looking into. the-
whether or not they could have signs.
You can do
All right.
that, and our colleague Ellie Bueno might also be helpful.
That's right.
May I suggest that the office send out this brochure so other member of the public can see it?
Yeah, good idea.
And use
Yeah, good idea. Oh,
the services?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Diego, I can send the brochure to the community board, to Ebenezer, or maybe you want to do that to
Yeah, I'll do that.
ask him to further spread the word in the community.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
maybe in our newsletter, we can have a link to it so people can access the information.
And just CC Steve when you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. Thank you, Diego.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for coming and successfully completing your second meeting with us. Okay, next is Diane Ashley. And Jacob, make sure you get this straight because apparently I have had the wrong title for Diane for all these months. She is the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer for MJHS. Something I don't remember anymore what it stands for. Metropolitan
Well, it
Jewish
was
Health
Metropolitan Jewish Health System, but
Okay.
MJHS is how we market ourselves, and obviously Isabella.
Yes. All right. So this time I got your title straight. So Diane, do you have a report for us?
I do. I have a lot of zeros, which I'm very happy about.
Oh, the zeros.
No patients with the flu, no patients with norovirus, no patients with RSV, and no patients with COVID.
Yay.
You're just a big zero. Has anybody ever told you that? I'm just,
Nobody has told me that, and in this context, I will actually take it as a compliment.
okay.
But actually, it's not a compliment. It's just very good news and good hygiene and good news.
It is good news. Is there anything else?
I think most of the other statistics I've given you are pretty much holding steady in terms of vaccinations, et cetera. But
Very
the good news is that I was able to get the norovirus data that you requested, and it's zero across the board.
Apparently, it's been an issue in nursing homes elsewhere in the country, but it's good to hear that it hasn't flared up at Isabella.
Yeah. I mean, my data is largely as of Tuesday. I pulled it a little early because of the holidays.
That's good enough. That's
and
good
the,
enough.
And the norovirus data, I either got Tuesday or Wednesday. So.
All right. Very well. I don't think you got it on Wednesday, but you were off on New Year's.
I think.
Oh, you think? Okay. All right. Well, I hope you were off. Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions for Diane? Not a one. Again, another zero.
There you go. And a happy
Okay.
new year to everybody. A happy, healthy, and year ahead filled with hope.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a guy who does a humor column. Used to do a humor column for the New Yorker, but still does humor pieces. And he reported today that they decided after just one day that 2025 should be canceled. And we should just move on quickly to 2026 and maybe
I agree.
and maybe just cancel the next 4 years. But
I'll go for that. 2 years is good. Let's start with 2.
well, I don't know. You may want to cancel the 4 years, but we'll see how
And
that
again,
works.
we may appreciate term limits.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out. All righty. Old business. I got plenty of old business.
Yes.
I got plenty. So
I don't know if it's an old business, actually.
well,
I'll think about it.
You think about it. I'll get to you in a
Okay.
moment. So we have cleanliness ratings again for the month of November. For the
November?
November of 2023.
Yeah.
We now have
23?
hold it. 2023. Oh, forget it. What is this? Forget it. We don't have any what is this? Okay, we don't have cleanliness. We don't have cleanliness ratings. All right, thank you.
Another year canceled.
He just canceled the year. You see how easy it is?
I swear to you, I clicked on 2024 and this is what I got. Okay. Forget it. Okay. Okay, we're on to the recycling statistics. And these are good for September of 2024. So the diversion rate for that month was 15.9%, which was somewhat below the diversion rate for the previous year, which was 16.6. They collected from District 12, 46.8 tons of organics, 408.9 tons of metal, glass, and plastics, 377.4 tons of paper, which was actually considerably down from the year earlier, and about 4,400 tons of refuse, which was slightly below the previous year. On the DEP service request for the month of December of 2024. 6 of the top 8 complaints that were registered involved noise. The number 1 complaint overall, or the number 1 request overall, was for lead testing kits. 42 noise construction before and after hours. 33 complaints. Hydrants running. 15 noise from construction equipment. 15 barking dog noise from barking dogs. 14 noise, strangely enough, from lawn care equipment. 13, I hope those are not from the Parks Department. Noise from alarms, 12, and noise from air conditioners, ventilation equipment, 10.
What month was this, Steve?
December of 2024.
A lot of air conditioning and lawn care in December.
Yeah, good point.
Right.
Yeah, that's very, well, it's air conditioning and ventilation equipment. But that does seem a little strange. Okay, as of today, the city has started issuing summonses to 1 to 9 unit residential buildings, including single family homes, as well as city agencies, houses of worship, nonprofit offices that don't put their trash out in bins with secure lids. And I also sent this around. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has determined that the developers of the large housing site at 207th Street and 9th Avenue next to the University Heights Bridge, that they satisfied the brownfield cleanup requirements. This is an issue that this committee looked into some time ago. We made our own recommendations on how the cleanup should be carried out.
Steve,
Apparently,
just as a reminder, is that the north or south side of 207?
this is the north side, between east of 9th Avenue. Used to be a parking lot.
The old gas station in there too.
Yeah.
No, that's across
The
the
gas
street.
station was on the other side of 9th Avenue, on the west side. This is the one that abuts the North Cove inlet there. In fact, the housing development is known as the North Cove Apartments. And DEC reports that they excavated and disposed of approximately 70 cubic yards of lead contaminated soil and 11,000 cubic yards of soil and contaminated historic fill material. Clean fill was brought in to replace the excavated soil and to establish the grades at the site. But you should all have the fact sheet from the State Department of Environmental Conservation.
What I don't understand is why are they reporting it now when the building is already up? I mean, wouldn't they want to report it before they build the building? Because if they didn't
Yeah.
excavate enough material off the ground, now what they're gonna do?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Good question, but they paid the right lobbyists.
I'm gonna ask that question,
Thank you, Steve.
because I also have another question, but that's a good one. Because I also want to know whether they say that they say that they covered the site with 2 feet of clean stone and 2 feet of clean soil covering the various areas. I'm just curious to know whether there's any potential seepage into the park on the north side from layers further down, because this housing is built up at a higher level than the park below it.
Right.
I-
So this is one question. The second question you should ask is, do they test the water right there at the right, right next to the site? Not the drinking water.
Yeah.
Okay. And the third question is the same as the first question I asked about the site that used to be a gas station. Where
Well-
is that info now? The building is already there. So I'm not sure,
Yeah,
I'm really curious how they work around it when there are issues when,
the one across the street,
yeah,
Okay.
building's already there.
yeah. Well, did we already see did we already see a determination on that site?
Yeah, I was just looking this up because I was trying to find it in my email, but it was August 14th. I can forward the email around again. There was a notice that went out that the brownfield site cleanup was done on that gas station site.
Yes.
So that's been done for a while.
Yeah,
Okay,
that we previously got,
okay,
but maybe at a point still when the building was already going up.
yeah,
Yeah,
so.
All right, all right. all right, thank you, Jacob. All right, so that's my old business.
Yeah,
You have old business?
I do have an old business.
What is your old business?
My old business is in regards to spay neuter. I just want to say that I just posted on about 7 or 10 Facebook groups in our district. Okay,
So much.
sure,
I
yeah,
so
yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
I just have to get going for this parking.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Thank
Oh,
you
yeah.
all so much.
well, you stayed longer than expected. Well, definitely longer than required. So what about
Okay.
spay neuter?
So what about spay neuter? So I have my numbers for my own spay neuter that, okay. So I did take 145 cats and 1 dog to get fixed in 2024.
Wow,
Out of them,
say that again.
146, 146. 145 cats, 1 dog,
Only one dog.
only 1 dog. I
Okay.
generally don't
You don't do
do,
dogs.
right.
Yeah.
It was a special case and I was happy to do it. Okay,
But
So
that's an incredible number. You did this all on your own?
It's a case number.
You did.
Steve Simon,
I want to point it out. You did this all on your own.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, out of them, this is where it's interesting. Out of them, 56 cats were own cats, house cats. 13 superintendent cats, like building superintendent. 12 bodega cats. 65 outdoor cats, meaning unowned cats. Out of them, out of the 65, 45 friendlies. Let me repeat that. 45 friendlies, meaning dumped, maybe got lost and nobody looked for them, okay? And only 20 were feral cats, under socialist feral cats that got returned back to their colonies or where they came from. Only 20. Now,
But you still had to capture them.
I'm not talking about all the work. My point is the numbers here and why we should get services in our community, because if out of 65 outdoor cats, 45 of them are friendlies, that's a problem. Those cats should not be on the street. They got dumped for the most part. Out of those 45 cats, only 3 were fixed already before I got them, okay? And so for me, for one person that mainly deal with just feral cats that I TNR, get them fixed, send them back. Trap, neuter, return. It's a return because you have to return to where you, okay. So if only 20 of all this big number, only 20 are feral cats, and that's what I was supposed to do from the get-go because I don't do adoptions. This is a serious problem. And ACC should be here again, and the ASPCA need to answer to our resolution, and government official, everyone need to, this is just me, and I'm not the only rescuer in with Washington Heights. There are other rescuers, some of them don't do trapping, some of them do. So there are a lot of difficulties specifically in Washington Heights. The situation in Washington Heights is far worse than this. Now, I do have it by zip code, but I don't want to publish it to the public because this will be a way for people to dump. So I'm not,
The first number you had
Okay.
was
56 house cats.
So what,
So
So-
those
so what-
56 cats are owned cats that the owners cannot afford to pay the private clinic to get their cats fixed. And
so how do they know to call upon you to do it?
because people know about me already, okay? People call me, I got my phone number from so-and-so.
So they
Is
can't,
this how they get to
so
me?
they can't afford to do it, so they ask you,
Right, and so
and where do you go to then get it done for free? You go to ASPCA?
ASPCA,
Yeah.
this is the go-to place, and I just.
They won't take their cats themselves?
They can't. Because the ASPCA does not have a clinic here in our district, not in Manhattan. So they will not service pets that are not living in specific zip codes. And that's something that we put in the resolution, if you remember correctly,
So how are you getting it done?
because they're going through the rescuer system.
Oh.
That's how I take them to get fixed, through the rescuer system. So we need to address that, and I think we need to. I'm not sure exactly how to get the ASPCA here, but definitely we need to have Carmen here pushing for this and asking ACC to come and do services. We need services even like not just spay neuter, we need vaccinations. And it's all that we only have, remember, we only have three private clinics in our district.
Yeah.
And those pets owner are not going there because it's expensive for them. So those clinics are not losing any customers. They're not getting in the doors. So we need to understand that those pets end up eventually either on the street or going back to the shelters. The shelters overpopulation. We are not helping the pet owners that want to keep their cats, and we are not, and dogs, and we're not helping, the pets themselves. So we need to escalate what we should do next.
Yeah. All right, I gotta get the office to send new letters to the ASPCA and
Right.
HTC.
And
And I think we should probably cite your statistics.
but this is my statistics for my rescue.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Yeah,
Other
just one
rescues.
example.
Right, this is one example. Now there is a clock, there is a calculator to calculate how many unfixed pets in every borough. And I think for us as a borough, not as a district, is, I forget how many, 34,000 unfixed pets. I'll send out the link.
How do they determine that number?
By population and pet ownership, probably took some data from the veterinary association, whatever the name is, with dog registration and so forth. There is some sort of a calculator.
It's obviously based on estimates, so yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So,
All
we are not in great shape at all.
All right. Could you also send those stats to Jacob so he can have them for the minutes?
Sure. Yes, of course.
All right, well, that's
Just-
Jody.
Yeah, just one, nothing on your thing, but just one more, old business.
Yes.
Okay, Maria. In December, we talked about the composting program and the fact that the composting program is destined to fail unless we get some education that would push compliance and really work on compliance itself. I sent you a resolution. Did you get it? Draft resolution?
I know we don't see it.
Oh, really? Well, then, you know what?
Let
I'll
me-
send it to you again,
Yeah, please.
because I would love to.
Because I tried to get a speaker tonight, but they weren't available, so
Coming in March.
did they say March?
Yes. I'm sorry.
February,
Scratch what I said. February. You're right.
yeah. I'm
I'm
hoping
wrong.
to have somebody here in February.
Okay, great. That would be great then. So what that would work, I'll send you, I wanted you to get the draft first.
Okay,
Take a look at it and then maybe we can share it with the committee and be ready to sort of address it because I think it's gonna fail and it's really.
yeah, I forgot that, I also asked them to send somebody in February. So we may have three different, guest speakers at the February meeting. Because as you see from the minutes, we also have somebody coming from the Attorney General's office to speak about pesticides illegal pesticides and we heard from a group at East Harlem that is trying to open up a health center in Washington Heights that wanted to come and speak to us. All right, so that covers the whole business. Is there any new business? No new business. Any announcements? No announcements. Okay, so as I mentioned, the next meeting is scheduled for February the 6th. We expect to have a presentation from the Attorney General's office and a professor emeritus from the Mailman School of Public Health about the public health threat of street pesticides in Northern Manhattan. And the executive director of the Barikin Neighborhood Health Center in East Harlem talking about a plan to open up a site here in Washington Heights, and hopefully a speaker from the sanitation department about composting. So thank you all. Hearing no objections, we're going to adjourn this meeting at 9:21 p.m. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Julio.
Good
Good night.
Good night.